I know when we hear this, we start because we get so much into the lives of players nowadays, and it's not just what happens on the football field. We say, oh, Antonio Brown. Why would you do Antonio Brown? But let me remind you guys, Antonio Brown on the football field was one bad dude.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, Antonio Brown had 6 straight years of at least 100 receptions. 6 straight years of 100 receptions. When I see this, and I look at all these players on this list, I can say this simply, and especially Antonio Brown, I see their game in Tyreek Hill. I see why he says these guys that he has on this list. Antonio Brown was, I think he might have mentioned this one day when we were on the show. Catching that ball up in the middle of that field and running away from players, Antonio Brown was great at that. The Jerry Rice and T.O.'s, all those guys, that's the same offense they ran that he's in right now. All of those little reverse motions and going outside, hitting the corner, catching touchdowns. That's how Jerry Rice caught 22, 23 touchdowns in 1 year, doing that same play. Working the middle of the field. T.O. them, they did all of that. So, yes, when he's watching, these are the players he's watching. That's a West Coast offense he's running. He's been running that. What we have an issue with is that we've seen all the other things that Antonio Brown has done since he's left the football field, or actually while he was on the football field and towards the end of his career. We see those things and we say, why would you put him in here? Tyreek wasn't thinking about those things. He's thinking in his head about all the guys that he watched coming up to get to this point. And I can see why he mentioned Antonio Brown when you see the way he plays the game. He's a shorter guy, but big heart. Antonio Brown was a shorter guy with big heart. But to go across that middle and catch that ball like it wasn't anything. So I can understand what he's saying when he's talking about he modeled his game after.
Yeah, I don't, look, man, I don't have a problem with anybody's list about the top receivers or quarterbacks or whatever it is that you like. We all like something different. And when you look at Antonio Brown or Steve Largent or Santana, Moss, I like all them too. I just don't like them in the number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 spot. That's all. I like them. But when, like Michael said, when you look at, in the way that Tyreek Hill said this is that Antonio Brown gave him the ability to want to achieve greatness because it's similar body type, statue, draft position, smaller. I get all that. Both of them primarily when they came into the league were special team players early in their careers.
Correct.
And so I get all that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I forgot about that part, Key. I forgot about that part. You're right.
You know, and so when you start to
they work their way in. They work their way in.
They work their way in. They work their tails off to become what they are, what they became.
Right.
Antonio Brown, AB, if he didn't have the off-the-field issues at the end of his career, we would constantly have a conversation about Antonio Brown.
Absolutely.
It may not be the number 1 guy, but it would just be his name would be mentioned more times than not.
Yep.
But it's like, because of the off-the-field stuff, it's like, I don't even want to go down that track.
Yep.
Antonio Brown was a hell of a football player, man. For his size, for everything. He was a hell of a football player. Ridiculous, just like Tyreek Hill. I personally, when Tyreek Hill says change the game, I'm not going to go down that avenue and say change the game. Guys that change the game, when people are drafting and looking for guys, they're looking for certain triangle numbers, height, weight, size, and speed. Right, Michael? They're looking for 6'2", 200 pounds. When I was drafted as the number 1 overall receiver, I wasn't drafted because I ran 4'2". I was drafted because I had triangle numbers. I was a dog when it mattered. When it mattered most, when the lights turned on, they had to account for me. That's why I was drafted where I was drafted at. And when I got into the league, I didn't catch for 1,500 yards in a single season. But whatever it was when I called it, it meant something. That's changing the game to me.
All right.
Okay, when I look at the playmaker, not because he's on my show, but when he line up on that outside edge and number with that ugly mouthpiece, and he down low like this, and he get ready to run that bang A, that means something. Troy drop back, hit the 5th step, let it go. Playmaker catch it, he get up with them long sleeves on, and first down. Okay. Jerry Rice, all that, Skip.
All right, let's go back to this list. What do I see as the connecting thread on this list from Tyreek, who's a deep dude and a very high IQ football player? Where did Tyreek come from? He came from rural Georgia, and he had to go to Garden City Community College in Kansas, and then he went to Stillwater to play at Oklahoma State for a minute, and he wound up at West Alabama because he had some off-the-field issues, and he wasn't drafted until the 5th round. Am I right? Yeah. And now we can make the case he's the best receiver in football out of the 5th round of the draft, right? Antonio Brown was a 6th round draft choice and became at times maybe the most productive receiver in the game over
7-year period,
right?
probably.
Okay. All right. What do we know about Jerry Rice? Would you believe Jerry Rice ran a 4.7 40? Would you believe the Dallas Cowboys said no to Jerry Rice because he didn't run, couldn't run fast enough, right? Steve Largent ran 4.7 coming out of Tulsa University, 4.7. And Jerry Rice at 4.7 became the greatest receiver ever by far in just yards. I mean, nobody's ever going to touch the numbers that he put up. No. And Steve Largent became a 5-time first or second team All-Pro and a 7-time Pro Bowler and a Hall of Famer out of the 4th round running 4.7. So you can see what's happening, because then the TO thread here is he was a 3rd round draft choice out of UT Chattanooga. He ran, he had the triangle numbers. But again, nobody thought he was going to be much as a 3rd round pick. And look at him now. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think Tyreek is looking at these guys as guys who had to come from, quote, nowhere to everywhere, right? Yeah. Because Tyreek did. He came from nowhere to top.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with his assessment of these guys.
That's a good point.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. But
that's a good assessment, Skip. It's a different assessment. I look at it and say I thought he was playing, you got the TOs, they can get up the field also, and they get over the top. The Steve Largents and all these guys understood the game. He has to do both of them.
He does.
He has to be able to get up the field, but also understand the game because he plays the inside. I thought he was maybe mentioning it that way also, like you were talking about.
Michael, what does it mean to you that Jerry Rice became Jerry Rice after timing 4.7 in the 40? 4.7.
Well, because some people can't run a clock.
Yeah.
And then some people can't run with the football.
That is correct.
And Jerry Rice is not going to run with the clock. It's because why? With a clock, speed in a 40 is really about how quick you get moving, how fast you get moving right now to get right. It's a thing. But speed on a football field is I just got to outrun that guy right behind me. and Jerry Rice gets the ball in his hands. It's a whole different thing, man. He's a better runner when he gets his speed going. That's why he's not a great 40 time.
And when you look at these, you talking about ranking guys and stuff like that. Look, man, Jerry Rice, T.O., Michael Irvin, Marvin Harrison. I mean, I can go on and on a list. I can go all the way back to James Lofton. I can go on and on about a list. It's all circumstances and situations and quarterbacks and all of those sort of things.
Right.
Hell, Larry Fitzgerald played with like 20 different quarterbacks in Arizona. Okay? Just imagine if he would have taken that deal and went to New England when they was courting him and played with Tom Brady. He'd have 3 or 4 rings by now. So it just all depends on what you like.
Antonio got a ring thanks to Tom Brady.
Depends on what you like.
In a moment, we're going to talk about Luka making his case. He's now the best player in the NBA.
No mercy, no mercy, no mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.